Welcome to the Money Insights Podcast, where high-income earners come to learn wealth-building strategies that will take them from high income to high net worth. With your hosts, financial and wealth-building experts, Christian Allen and Rod Zabriskie.
Welcome into today's episode of the Money Insights Podcast, where we talk all things money and business. My name's Christian Allen, and I am with my co-host, Rodney the Pod Zabriskie. Rod, what's up, man?
Hey, I'm doing great.
So we had a super fun interview with Andre Haynes, who you're going to talk a little bit about all the things he's done. But can I just say the reason that I really wanted to have Andre come on is because I heard his story. And it's just incredibly inspirational, right? Like this story of
Absolutely.
like a literal story of rags to riches, right? Doing it the right way. So one of the things that I like about the interview is that he touches on like all of those core, like the core things that people need, not the gimmicky things, right? Like the core like mindset, like the things that you really need in order to find not just like fleeting success, but long-term success.
Yeah.
I thought it was really cool. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Andre?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and we'll learn about like expand on these things during the interview, but he's a former musician that became a successful real estate investor. He's an author. He has a clothing line. He's a modern art enthusiast. He also teaches some digital courses on how to succeed in some of the things that he's done. And it's just, again, a really impressive story, but it's about the mindset. And it's something that we all can learn from, because the way I see it is where he is now is where a lot of our listeners are. But the journey, right? We all have a different journey. And his is such an impressive story of kind of against all odds, just making cool things happen. And he could have tried to take a shortcut at different times, but he didn't. He took it head on and made it happen.
Can I just tell you, after we got off the interview, I'm going to a little sneak peek into our conversation with Andre. He was super appreciative to be able to come on the show. And the one thing he said that just kind of stood out to me was that he just didn't think his story was that important or that, that big of a deal that people would want to listen to it. And yet, since he's kind of come out and started sharing it, it's just grabbed on like wildfire. So it's super cool. Okay, Rod. Well, without further ado, let's bring in our interview with Andre Haynes, real estate investor, entrepreneur, author, course creator, and a few other things. Okay, today we are super excited to have Andre Haynes on with us. Now, Andre, I'm just going to jump right into the interview. And you've had already started and created this successful real estate career, but the cards weren't always stacked in your favor. So I would love to kind of get some of your backstory, how you were raised, and I want to get into this story about the change and not just the way you were thinking, but behaviors that helped you go from again, a place where all the cards weren't in your favor to the place where you're at today.
It started at a young age, man. I am from the south side of Chicago, the Ida B. Wells projects. They're no longer there. The neighborhood has been changed and gentrified at this point. I don't come from very much financial literacy, really none at all. Most of my family growing up, they were on government-assisted programs, Section 8, EBT food stamps and stuff like that. And just trying to figure out this path and find my way in this, entrepreneurship world, in this real estate world has been a very, very difficult and trying process, but it has been well worth it. I must say it has been well worth it.
Okay, so you started in the projects, right? How long was it? How long did it take you to get out of that life?
Well, it didn't take me long, because from the ages of 1 to 6, I was with my mom. Then I ended up living with my aunt, who adopted me, because my mom and dad, they were affected by the drug epidemic that hit the inner city and urban areas of our communities in the late 80s and early 90s. And unfortunately, I was taken away from my parents, but fortunately enough, I was adopted into my own family. And I was raised by an aunt who loved me and cared about me. And it was almost like a community effort from my entire family to make sure that I had everything that I needed to get everywhere that I needed to go, and just really be able to make it without being taken out of my family structure.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, it's nice that you had people who were willing to like band together to support you, right? I heard you talk in an
Absolutely.
interview that I heard you mention that you felt like the only way to get out was really through like sports or music. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I know you had a an interesting career also in the music world.
Absolutely. In the communities that I come from, like I say, like low income areas, the projects, like where the school systems aren't that great, they're like food deserts. You don't have much, fresh produce, stuff like that. A lot of the
Mhm.
times, the only thing that we see that are success stories to us are rappers, ball players, and essentially drug dealers. You know what I mean? And of course, I didn't want
Mm,
to be the latter, so I essentially tried
yeah.
to, be a ball player. And you find out early on, early in high school years that you're not going to go to the NBA or be an NFL player or be an MLB player. Those kind of things, like they hit you early on.
Yeah.
To that, I went on next best thing. I've always been very creative. I've always been talented with my words. I've always been very, very witty. And I pursued a music career probably from the time I was 15 years old to the time I was maybe 27 or 28 years old. And I had some really, really cool experiences in the music industry. I didn't make money at all, but I had some cool experiences. I would perform and open up with big names like T.I., Fat Joe. I met Jay-Z and Beyonce at the Final Four games because a couple of my buddies, they played NBA ball and just played for major universities. D. Brown went to the University of Illinois. My buddy Brown went to Michigan State University. And both of those guys went to the Final Four in the same year, and I was fortunate enough to go. And just like I've had some really, really cool experiences just through my friends and through my music career. But unfortunately, I just was not successful in that field. No matter how hard I tried, no matter who I was in front of, I was in the major labels, I was in front of artists, I would open up, perform for stadiums with 15 to 20,000 people. Like, I mean, just the list goes on of things that I've done. It's almost like I've lived probably like 5 or 6 different lives. But like just for whatever reason, God
Awesome.
just would not let me be successful in those industries, man.
That wasn't the right fit, I guess. The good
Nah, it
news
wasn't.
is you found your way. You found your way. Okay, so I want to switch gears a little bit. And sorry, Rod, I'm just like hogging the
You're
mic here,
good.
but I've done a little research and listened to some of these pods. Okay, so Andre, you mentioned that Rod's favorite business book, which is Rich Dad Poor Dad, had a
Mhm.
profound influence on your life. So what happens next? Where does your story go from there?
After 10, 12 years of chasing the music dream, I kind of had to let it go. You realize, you're behind on bills. Certain things just aren't happening. Eviction notices, just like, you could barely eat. But yet I have
Yeah.
this image of like this big time artist. Like I'm just like this, just, what I mean? Like this, and it's just not like that. So I had to really like take a step back and reevaluate my situation, and make the decision to step away from music and get back into the workforce. And from there, I kind of like went on and got a job at a telemarketing company. And it was like probably like the bottom of the barrel kind of work, man. Like you really like,
Doing whatever you
wouldn't want to
could.
be there. Yeah, like I would be calling people, putting them in these schools that probably weren't even the schools, you know what I mean? But it was paying my bills and I was making good money. I was getting bonuses and things like that. And in that time frame of sitting in that cubicle for 6 years, man, I read every single book under the sun that I could about real estate, stock market, psychology, self motivation, all of these different things. And Rich Dad Poor Dad was the one that stood out the most. And it essentially is the book that changed my life because it just like made everything so simple and put all of these subjects and concepts that before, when somebody spoke to me about them, they seemed so complicated, but it broke them
Mm.
all down and made them so simple for me. And I was just like, you know what? A light bulb went off in my head and was like, this is my path. I get wealthy through entertainment, but no, this is what it's going to be. And I just started doing everything that I needed to do to, get ahead. Started working on my credit, started saving my money. After a while, I started just like, looking up just like stocks to invest in, just like everything that wealthy people who are getting wealthy the normal way, as opposed to just through entertainment or like creating an app, just regular wealth building. I started to build
Yeah.
my wealth slowly and surely. And here I am today, man.
You know what's really incredible about that? The thoughts coming to my mind, Andre, is I'm hearing you're saying that like we most of us have to take a little bit longer road to success and wealth, and yet you're a pretty young dude, right? Like
Yes,
you've
sir.
still accomplished a whole lot already. So the slow grind is one of those that it feels like a slow grind in the moment. You can look back and all of a sudden it feels a lot different, right? Like it's surprising, amazing how much you can accomplish. And obviously you've been a good example of someone that's accomplished a lot over the last 10 or 15 years, especially.
Absolutely, absolutely. And honestly, everything started for me with education. Like I said, in that cubicle, I read books from the year 2012 to 2017. And from there, in 2015, I bought my first property, and I started investing in the stock market. Then a couple years later, I bought more property, and it's just like I've attained in a probably since 2015, 7 year time span, approximately like $1.8 million worth of real estate, stocks. I've become an entrepreneur, an author. I travel around doing public speaking, mentoring youth, doing podcasts all over the country, just like all from making a decision to not just settle and be okay with having a job because my initial dream of rapping didn't work out. Like I had to pivot and figure something else out. And it all started with me just like digging in and educating myself initially. You know what I mean? I try to tell people that all the time. The first step to anything when it comes to growing and being better, educate yourself on what it is that you're trying to do. That's the main thing that's going to get you on the right path. Because if you don't know anything, then you know what I mean? How do you get started? You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, as you kind of figured out the Rich Dad Poor Dad and these other things that you were learning about, how did you then translate that into action? And I guess what I mean by that is you yourself, but also did you surround yourself with other people that could help you kind of put the pieces together, connect the dots? How did that all go?
Absolutely. So, like I said, the relationships that I built with my friends who played ball were amazing. And this one relationship in particular has really been very, very beneficial. And once I got this job, I saved up some money and I reached out to her. And I was like, hey, Kyoki, you know what? I got some money saved up. I've been working a while. I got my tax history. You know what I mean? I got my work history. I'm ready to buy a house. And she was like, I mean, that sounds cool or whatever the case may be, but you really should consider buying a multi-unit. And the light bulb went off again because essentially I had read the same thing in Rich Dad Poor Dad, buying assets as opposed to liabilities and taking on more expenses. She's like, buy you a multi-unit in your situation. You can live in one unit for free, essentially house hacking, and let the other units pay your mortgage, and you'll probably even have some cash flow left over. And she told me about this amazing program called the NACA program, Neighborhood Assistance Corporations of America. Allowed me to purchase my first property, which was a 4-unit building in an amazing Chicago suburb with no money down. I started with the 3.5% interest rate. I bought it down to 2.5%. In addition to that, NACA also paid all of my closing costs. NACA paid for my attorney. NACA paid for my agent. In addition to that, there were no fees like, the FHA fees and different things like that. I didn't have to pay any of that stuff. On top of that, I got a seller's concession. So I walked away from the closing table with the $5,000 check, and I closed at the end of the month. So when I was moving into my apartment, tenants just started walking up handing me money. So this is how my Friday went.
That's awesome.
I closed on a property, moving in the property. I got a $5,000 check at the closing table. I got the keys to my property. I kept all of my money that I was saving for my down payment. In addition to, like I said, tenants started paying me rent immediately upon me moving in because I closed on the 31st of the month. And mind you, you guys know when you close on a property, you don't have a mortgage that first month. So all of that money went into my pocket.
Yeah.
Man, that is a sweet deal. You got to teach the rest of us how to pull that off, Andre. That's no easy task. Okay, so here's a question for you. You had this really significant life-changing event in the form of being able to get this property, and again, not just any property, but a multifamily property that you could both live in and start to work in cash flow. Did you bring in that extra 15, 20 grand and go blow it, or what did you do with it?
No, so of course I spent a little bit. I went and bought me a Jag because I had to celebrate some. I went and got me a Jag, and then after the Jag, I went and put the rest of the money into the stock market. I spread it across, just quality tech stocks, Apple, Amazon, Tesla, and then I put the rest in, the S&P 500, Vanguard, technology, ETF, just different things that I had been reading about in like Money Master the Game, Tony Robbins' book
That's
that
awesome.
that just really taught me a lot about money as well. So I did all of that stuff, and I left that money in the market for about 3 or 4 years and let it run up because the market was running up like crazy at that point. And at the time, my girlfriend, I used to take her to all of my meetings with me to NACA, and we weren't married. So my mortgage counselor, he was a really, really cool dude. And he was like, hey, man, look, this is the cheat code to this. How about you both go into your situation with multi-units? How does that sound? I'm like, dude, that would be amazing. If I had a
Ah,
4 unit and she
nice.
had a 4 unit, he was like, well, this is what you do. He was like, once you close on your property, before you guys go and get married or do any of that stuff, you bring her back to the program and you run the same play that we just ran with you for your girl. And I'm just like, dude, that's genius. I'm like, that's genius. And we did that on my property 3 years later. But this particular property was in a much better neighborhood, much higher cash flow, worth way probably 3 times more than my other property. This was $1 million property that we were able to attain and live in it for free. And it was a very, very unique because it's considered a 4 unit, but there's a 3 unit building in the front of the lot in what's called in Coach House in Chicago, but in other areas they're called ADUs. And this is not just a regular size ADU or coach house. This thing is huge. It's big and it's beautiful. 12-foot coffer ceilings, floating stairs,
Awesome.
just beautiful, just beautiful. And the person who sold us the house was a developer, and he lived here, so that's why he laid it out so nicely. And even the apartments, we're talking like $1,700 or $1,800 for a 1 bedroom apartment. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like really nice in this neighborhood. So we're cash flowing super duper high over here. We get to live for free again. I move out of my place over there. So now that one's cash flowing. In addition to us having a ton of equity in this place, and we brought our interest rate down to 0.8%.
It's
Wow.
nice. It's a win, man.
Yeah, so on both properties, on my first one, I got a 2.5% interest rate, and on the second one, I got a 0.8% interest rate. Will I ever see rates like that again? Probably not. But I did so good on those two, I don't even worry about rates anymore. As long as the numbers make sense, I'm good.
So, Andre, one of the things that I loved about your story that kind of drew me to the story was the entrepreneurial spirit. And I don't, it was early on in an interview that I listened to where I heard you mentioning your kind of some of your hobbies, and one of them was kind of cool. I thought it would be fun to talk a little bit about it. And I think it was art. Like, you talked a little bit about what you've been able to let me say it this way. It seems like you were able to transition something that was like a hobby into also money-making activity. Talk a little bit about what you're doing with art.
Absolutely. Okay, so I collect art, modern art. Few different guys. I like a guy by the name of Cause. His name is Brian Donnelly. Brian Donnelly. He's out of the East Coast. He, as you can see, that book right there. That's one of my collectibles right there. It's got one of his characters on it behind me right there.
Nice.
And I've got a ton of his pieces all around my house. They're like these little cool sculptures. He does collaborations with Sesame Street, Snoopy. I mean, and then he has his own stuff as well. And what I started to do was I started to put my house on PeerSpace, which is a peer-to-peer space where you can kind of like rent your property out to people who want to just host events, shoot music videos, photos, corporate commercials, just whatever it is. But the good thing about it is it differs from Airbnb because people don't have to stay night. They're just renting out your space hourly.
Yeah, that is
And
super
you can
interesting.
probably go way higher as far as the profit than Airbnb. But what attracts a lot of the people to my space is my art. So not only is my art cool looking or whatever the case may be, not only does it go up in value because after I purchase these things, I mean they skyrocket in value on the resale market, and it's like a legit resale market for these things. In addition to that, it generates more income because people want to come in and do photos and do video shoots and different things with these art pieces, and it's just like a 360 money circle with these things, and it's just really kind of cool.
Okay, Andre. So you've got all sorts of stuff going on. You've got I want to talk about the book next. Okay.
Mhm.
So talk about maybe talk about the journey and like what it was like to try to put the book together. What was kind of the inspiration behind getting that out there? And just talk about, okay, first off, what's the title of it? And then tell us a little bit about it.
Renaissance's 5-step guide on getting your shit together.
I love it. It's
That's
such a
the title of the
it's a
book.
good one, man. It is a good one.
Absolutely.
When did it come out?
Absolutely. I put the book out officially in January 22nd of 2022 is when I put the
Nice.
book out.
Okay, so you got to go get Andre's book. Tell people what they can expect to find inside your book.
That book is kind of like my step-by-step blueprint and just guide that I use to get my life in order. I can give you guys just a little bit of outline. I've got some really, really cool interviews in there from some of my friends, and I have some really cool friends who've gone on to sell millions of records, who've gone to start sneaker businesses, who are executives in the music industry, just like a lot of really, really cool stuff. But the first chapter of my book is self-evaluation, which was the first thing that I had to do in order to get my shit together. You know what I mean? I had to take a look in the mirror. And this is what I read in Rich Dad Poor Dad. Like the first thing is looking at yourself. You're responsible for, you know what I mean, the position that you're in, the space that you're in. Like, and if you want some things to change, you have to go out and make things change and not look at everybody else, you know what I mean, around you or in your family, et cetera, to change things for you. You're solely responsible for where you are and who you are. That's step one, you know what I mean, that process of self-evaluation, which is usually the hardest step because it's hard to look in the mirror and say, hey, I'm not where I want to be. I'm not the guy I want to be. I'm not the woman who I want to be. And these are the things that I need to do to get there, because most times what we're telling ourselves is we're already that person, or we're like gassing ourselves up or feeding ourselves this BS about who we are and how big we are, when in all actuality, we just aren't who we claim to be. It's just who we want to be. You know what I mean? So there's a slice of humble pie that comes with that self-evaluation process that most people can't take a bite out of.
Well, and it sounds like you kind of got that slice through through the music career, right?
Absolutely.
Where trying to get there, trying to get over the hump, but just not getting there. It's like for any of us as we're trying to reach a path of success and not being able to get there, it definitely serves us up a slice of humble pie.
Absolutely.
What I would say is kind of you taking that and even while you're doing that telemarketing job, then educating yourself. And I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here, but that takes humility too, right? That accept,
was
hey,
very humbling.
I don't know everything I need to know. I need to get out there and learn.
Right. Mind you, my best friend, my guy Shannon Brown, he played on the team with Kobe and LeBron. He won 2 championships with Kobe Bryant. You know what I mean? Like I went from being in LA Lakers games and doing shows, like I say, with Fat Joe and all of these different things, to me sitting in a telemarketing cubicle, just like making phone calls, getting cursed out and told no all day long, just dealing with rejection all day long.
Okay, so Andre, I'm taking a little bit of a detour here, only because you mentioned 2 players that both played for our local Utah Jazz. I'm pretty sure you said Shannon Brown. Did you say Shannon Brown?
No, my buddy D Brown.
D Brown played for Utah, right?
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
And then my other buddy Darren Williams. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. They were. So obviously, D-Dub played for our Jazz for a long time, and D Brown was there like his rookie year. I still remember it. Anyway, that's really cool.
Yeah, he was there for his first 2 years. Yep.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about some of the things you've got going on. We talked a little bit about your book. The first part, kind of getting your mindset in order, and talk about like the process for you having to go from, okay, here's where I'm at today. Now I'm looking in the mirror, but how did you, or what did you feel like helped you make the step and actually like take action to do something different? Like what flipped the switch in your mind to help you start making real actionable items for success?
Reading Rich Dad Poor Dad and understanding that like it was me. Like I was in my own way. It wasn't anybody else. Like I said, I had friends who were in high places. I would look for them to do favors for me, you know what I mean, to give me money, just do all these different things, when in all actuality, I had the power to do those things for myself. I just never gave myself the power. I would always put the power in other people's hands. And once I realized that and I took my power back, just the game changed drastically, man. You know what I mean? I started to just like really move and operate as a man who wanted to get things done and accomplished, and not just so passively and just like waiting for things to happen. Like, no, it doesn't work like that. You can't wait on things to happen. You have to really go out here and like force your way and, you know what I mean, make things happen for you. And when you do that, the universe responds accordingly and kind of gives you what you want. Like, you know what I mean? The universe don't like punks. Like the universe, if it's pushing you around and you ain't pushing back, you ain't gonna get what you want, man. It don't work like that.
I love it. I love it. That's like real talk, right? Like it's just the way it is. You got to just understand it and get after it, because generally success doesn't come unless you're willing to put in the time and the effort, right?
Absolutely. Like they say, man, hard work beats talent all day long. You could be the most talented person in the world, but if you're not working hard, somebody who works hard, they're gonna come along and they're gonna eventually beat your ass, and then ain't gonna nothing you can do about it because this whole time they've been working hard. You just been working off talent, you know?
Yeah, for sure. So okay, so Andre, you've got the book, and you gave us like a little bit of a snippet. I loved it. You know, I've listened to you talk through more of the book. I haven't read it yet, but I'm excited to get into it. And I liked that starting point. Right, it's almost like mindset first. You got to check yourself in the
Absolutely.
mirror. But maybe before we go, let's get into maybe the first three steps. So what's step two after you've been able to kind of get your arms around the mindset piece?
Understanding the power of your thoughts and your words. You know what I mean? Because first you have to look in the mirror and say, hey, I'm not where I want to be. I'm not who I want to be, which comes with, you know what I mean, a little bit of coming down hard on yourself. But then you also have to come back with positivity, like, yeah, I'm not where I want to be, but it doesn't mean that I can't get there. These are the steps that I need to take. You know what I mean? Understanding like the power of your mind and your words mean a lot. You can't speak negatively to yourself. You can't think negatively. You know what I mean? You have to put positivity into the universe. You have to like think positively. And those are the things that you're going to get back, man. Because if you're thinking about negative stuff and focused on negative stuff, then that's what you're going to get. You know what I mean? So understanding the power of your mind and words is a major second step after the self-evaluation process, because after you evaluate, you know what I mean, what the issues are, you have to be able to tell yourself in a positive way, hey, this is how we resolve those issues. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I have another question coming to my mind. So, Andre, when you started going, like, well, a couple of things. One of the things that I remember hearing is just that you were saving off of like a $25,000 a year salary, managed to save
Yes.
10, 12 grand to get it. Okay, so the reason I bring that up is for some context. We generally, or I should say it this way, our audience consists of generally high income, high net worth individuals. But here's something that everybody has in common. Everybody has like that common having to get over the hump, or having that common fear. And one of the things that we deal with and we talk to people about is how to get into the real estate and how to start just jumping in and doing it. Some people like the really passive way and go syndications, and some people like to go, do it more on the self style. But like, what is it that was able to give you, or maybe a better way to ask it would be, what advice would you give to people who are just trying to get over the hump? Because it doesn't matter if you have money or not. At some level, it can still be a challenge to just take the action to do it.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that last statement that you made is the key to getting over the hump. Just taking the action. Like you have to, like, in order to the finish line, you have to start. And along the way, you're gonna get some, you know what I mean, some bumps, some bruises. You're gonna come in, you know what I mean, you're gonna run across some, you know what I mean, forks in the road. But at the end of the day, you gotta maneuver around those in order to get to the finish line. And everything that you go through is set up to teach you a lesson. You just have to view it that way. You can't be upset about it. And even if you are, just be upset about it for a minute and get back to being a solution based person. You know what I mean? Like I don't focus on the problem, I solutions. And for me, if ever a problem, I think about the problem for 1 second, and then for the next 30 minutes, I'm thinking about how to solve that problem. Like I don't focus on the problem at all. We already identified what the problem is. Let's focus on how to solve the problem now. You know what I mean? I think a lot of times people tend to focus on problems so much that they can't really even get started. Like, what if it doesn't work? What if my tenants don't pay their rent? What if this happens or what if that happens? But it's like, but what if they do pay their rent? What if you're able to go up on your rent every year and you give yourself a pay raise? It's just like, do you ever think about the positive stuff that'll come out of this? And I think a lot of times that is what hinders people from being great, is actually starting.
I love the advice, man. You just have so many good, positive, like the mindset to get out of there. I spent 2 or 3 years in Virginia, and some of that time I was like kind of working with people who were in like the ghetto, and it's so difficult to get out of that atmosphere. And so I just want to give you huge props for being able to kind of fight through and do that, and being an inspiration to other people who are looking to do the same type of thing. Before we let you go, Andre, tell us just how we can get in touch with you, where to get your book, your Instagram, all that kind of good stuff, so that people can check you out more?
I'm at Renaissance 125 across all social media platforms, my YouTube, everything. In addition to the book, I also have an apparel line called Mindset Matters. I got some pretty cool concepts as far as my merch.
Okay, wait, say the apparel
In
line
addition to
again.
that, the apparel line is called Mindset Matters.
Mindset
And you
Matters. That's
can,
awesome.
yeah, absolutely. And you can click the link in my Instagram bio or go to my website, www.therenaissanceu.com, and you can shop there for the book, merch, any courses that I offer. I have 4 different courses. I have a course that teaches about the NACA program and how I utilize the NACA program to
That's right.
land my first multi-unit and how you can do the same thing. In addition to that, I also have a course on Pierce I make a ton of money off of now, and I don't even have to leave my house to do it. You can particularly rent out rooms in your property, and you don't even have to own a property. So if you don't even own a property yet, if you have a nice apartment that you rent or have a nice space that you rent, you can make money off of it by using Peerspace. So you guys can check that out. And I also have an introduction to real estate course for people who are just trying to find their way in real estate, just don't know quite where to get started, or, you know what I mean? Like just different concepts. I have a really, really good course on that. In addition to that, man, I do one-on-one. So if you guys have any questions, need consultation, reach out to me. And yeah, all of that stuff is in the link in my bio and at Renaissance 125 across all social media platforms.
Okay, at Renaissance 125. Don't miss the opportunity to reach out to Andre. Like, he's just got such a cool story, and obviously is doing a lot, inspiring a lot of people. Andre, thank you so much for coming on, man. We have really appreciated it, and we'll have to have you on again.
Hey, I appreciate you guys for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Money Insights podcast. To learn more about the financial and business strategies discussed in this show, please visit moneyinsights.net. The views and opinions expressed on the Money Insights podcast are not intended to be individual financial, tax, or legal advice. Always consult with the appropriate advisor before making financial decisions. And if you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. This will help others find the show and learn wealth-building strategies for themselves. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.